Hi, and welcome to this Fireside Exec Connect. My name is Jennifer Garrett. I'm head of industry education here at Facebook, and I'm truly delighted to be here today with all of you and with Jeff Tognola, one of the most innovative minds in marketing today. So before I pass over to Jeff, let me just introduce him and let you all know that he is the Chief Marketing Officer of Walden University, which was founded in 1970 to bring really premier education online. And they've been doing that ever since. So Jeff, thank you so much for being here today. We are going to talk about measurement. We are going to talk about marketing. But before we do that, would you just share a little bit about your journey and how you became the CMO of Walden?
Sure. Jenny, I'm so grateful to be here with you today and just honored to be asked to be a part of this fireside chat with you. As Jenny mentioned, my name is Jeff Tognola. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Walden University. And my journey in marketing started many, many years ago, about 25, when I started working in telecom. And I've always had a desire for data. I was a data scientist and also a passion for marketing and the customer experience. When I started with Walden in August of 2011, I was focused exclusively on the Walden University business. But through my journey here the last 10 years, I've had the pleasure of working with about 12 of the institutions around the entire Laureate network and around the world, and bringing marketing capabilities to those institutions and really propelling the business forward in how we attract and retain students. I'm excited to be here and share a little bit about that journey.
Well, we can't wait to hear it because you've really pioneered in the space and you were an early adopter in MTA and MMM. And I'm wondering sort of what triggered that? What did you see that caused you to really begin to transform Walden's measurement journey?
Sure. Well, first, if I go back a little bit in my professional career, I've worked in a number of industries, financial services and travel and hospitality, where the customer journey was extremely long. And as I started to explore coming into the education vertical, I once again entered a business where the customer's journey was extremely complex and very long, upwards of 2 years before some of our prospects make a decision to pursue their degree. And as a result of that, it was really critical as a marketer coming into this business to ensure that we were making the most informed decisions with the most appropriate data in hand. And I had to do that pretty early on in my career here at Walden.
2 years is a long time. You certainly do need to really be able to see what's going on. So when you started early, sort of how did you realize, okay, we have to start looking at things differently? And then how did you choose a partner to do that?
Sure. Well, a lot of the way that the marketing was done as I was evaluating the operation when I first joined was pretty much in its most simplistic state. Everything was done on a last click basis. Marketing was in one part of the organization, enrollment was in another part of the organization, and they had their own individual KPIs and how they were measured from a success perspective. And so early on, I had identified an opportunity to really start reimagining. And we started to use this word, the paradigm shift and how we thought about bringing the brands to market and attracting prospective students as we were moving them into the onboarding process. And so early on, it was really important to try to identify how you move away from a model that historically worked really well for the business. That last click model is very predictable. And in this case, it was acknowledging the fact that technology was really propelling the complexity of the customer journey. The use of mobile devices, the acceleration of the social channels, it all became very, very complex in the customer journey. And so brands that were at the forefront of this were able to pick up and pivot and adapt to that changing customer journey. And to the second part of your question, Jenny, you were talking about a partner. It's kind of really like threefold. First and foremost, the most important thing for me, being someone who's been in data since the early days of my career, was to ensure that I surrounded myself with people that had like-minded around data. So really hiring A players, bringing them to the table. They had a passion for data, the power of the data. The second critical part of this was to identify great partners inside the organization, my business intelligence colleagues. They were at the meetings with me every step of the way. I needed them there because of the expertise that they brought to the table. And then from a partner perspective, it was really aligning with partners that really truly did a couple things. One is they valued and respected data as an asset, the value of the data in identifying patterns, but more importantly, bringing solutions from those patterns that they were able to identify. And so for me, the journey was multi-stepped, building a great team, extending the network within the organization, and then bring excellent partners to the table that really had a passion for data, understood the complexity of the customer journey, and realized that you needed to remain humble throughout that entire process to continue to adapt to the ever-changing customer journey.
I love the passion for data there. And you're right. We all do have to be humble because we don't know what we're going to see.
That's true.
It's eye-opening. So how has this shift in the way that you measure impacted your marketing approach?
Sure. So a lot of things that I think about is as we build our marketing plans, and you go into a week, you go into a day, you go into a month, you go into a year, you have what they call a plan. But the reality is then you actually really get into what's happening that morning, that afternoon, that evening, the next day. And the reality is that going into that planning process, going into that daily execution, every dollar has an intended purpose. And the reality is that if you've got the right foundation, if you've got transparency into the decision that's being made with the data that's in the hand of the users, the ultimate intent is for those individuals to say, is this dollar that we're investing returning the benefit that we expected? And through a unified measurement approach, we can identify, is there a better use for that investment? And I take it down to its most simplistic state of saying a dollar. But the reality is that when we think in marketing budgets, they're much bigger. But the reality is you want to be able to make sure that you've got a full visibility into the plans. But the other most important thing is that the plans can pivot in real time based on the patterns that you're seeing in the data. And part of that is through the human intervention, and some of that's through the automated intervention, and then how those two work together.
We feel that a lot working with you. You're right. It's both the human and the machine together that really get us there. So now in this new framework, how do you now measure efficacy and results?
Sure. Well, marketing spans the entire funnel, but it also spans the consumer channels. It spans the business channels. It spans pure marketing. It spans the enrollment process, which is what we call it within the education space. And there's a reality here is that when we think about how we measure it, we have our marketing KPIs, right, which are really critical. And so the marketing team's focused on those. We have our enrollment team that's focused on our enrollment KPIs. There's these shared KPIs that they obviously that sits between them. But at the end of the day, the ultimate measure of success is that as a united team, all of our data and all the actions need to be pointing us to finding the prospect that can turn into a student that has the highest likelihood of succeeding. And the goal of all of these teams, no matter where you sit in the organization, through full transparency, is that we need to be making the most informed decisions with the data in hand to make sure that we're bringing the solutions to those prospective students, making sure that we can identify them. We can help them identify us as the best institution to proceed their education needs with. We can successfully find solutions to help them uniquely onboard with us. And so when you're really thinking about marketing, first, we all have to unite ourselves around what is it that we're doing on a daily basis, which is to attract and retain those that will have the highest likelihood of succeeding with us. But then individual KPIs span marketing, enrollment, financial, satisfaction, et cetera. So it spans the full funnel. But again, going back to my point, we're all centered and guided by that North Star.
So is it working? Has this overhaul of your measurement strategy paid off?
Yeah, well, one thing is we have very little blind spots. When you're operating a fully transparent operation where all of the teams are uniting with one common approach, that doesn't mean that we don't have our challenges on a daily basis. And obviously we have to sometimes get in a room and come to a really great solution using the data as an informed approach. But the reality is that through this approach, we're identifying that we're effectively spending our marketing dollars, where we're making much more informed decisions. We're actually at a place now where we have about 1/3 of the prospects coming into the business, and we're able to have much greater, higher quality conversations with those prospects. We need less individuals to talk to them because those conversations are much richer and they progress through our process much more seamless and are successfully onboarding. And so we're really, really excited. And just the other thing I would just share with some of those shared objectives, it's not just about the marketing KPIs, the enrollment KPIs. We also have other departments that we work very closely with. In the education space, we work with our financial aid and our financial services team. And we use data signals through this process where we might find someone has stalled in the process. And we're using these data signals to identify maybe ways to do more automated or proactive outreach to help them identify sources or tools that we have available for them. And we've identified and have improved our onboarding process about 400 basis points through this united approach where all of these teams can come together at different stages of the customer experience.
It sounds like you've learned a lot, and it sounds like this unified approach is definitely working. Are there any challenges or learnings you'd want to share with others? Because, these exec connects are really incredible opportunities for people to learn what's working for you, and what, you would not repeat. So
yeah,
I'd love to hear about some of those.
Well, I mean, I would say early on when I first joined, one of the things when you are, and I'll just call it for those out there, when you're someone who's data-driven, transformational, believes in transformation, be it if it's digitally led, if it's organizational transformation, if it's operational transformation, whatever it is. The most important thing is to identify those adjacent teams that your plans will impact. And one of the teams that is so critical to any measurement, and I already talked about BI, but one of the other teams that is equally important is our finance organization. They are extremely critical. Because when you're looking through a data lens that is united and unified, if you look at it through a last click basis, depending upon where you sit in the organization, you may be misled to an inappropriate outcome. And the reality here is that you bring those stakeholders to the table in a way that allows them to see how you're accumulating data, how the data is focused on delivering great outcomes for the business, and making sure that they are informed in the decisions that you're making as a result of that data. Now, that doesn't mean that every single conversation is easy, doesn't mean that they always agree every step of the way. But what I have always found is that when you're transparent with those organizations that are adjacent to the marketing team, it really makes the work that you do within your organization much more successful.
That's really a great point. And it's easy to get siloed. And it's not realistic. So thank you for that. Shifting gears just a slight little bit, we are in a period of signal loss. And I'm wondering how you feel about your current approach in this environment.
Yeah, so, well, one about the signal loss, I just want to say that we're all in this together.
Yes,
right. So at the end of the day, there's
true.
No one industry, there's no one brand that has a leg up. One of the things that it brings us back to is kind of, as we once talked, is the early days, which is building that one-to-one relationship. It's going to be so critical that advertisers really establish that one-to-one relationship. And for a brand like Walden, or any brand out there that has long customer journeys, it's going to be very important that you're accumulating knowledge and information on a first-party basis to help you just deepen that relationship with that consumer, be it if they're a prospect, if they're a student, if they're alumni. And at the end of the day, through that first party information, it's really going to be a mechanism is going to be allowing us to bring better solutions to them. It's going to allow us to then identify the patterns that have resulted in successful outcomes. And then ultimately, it then allows us to step back a week, a month, a year to help us identify and how to scale this in a way that allows us to capture more first-party data. The last thing I'll say on this topic is, consumers expect this. Just like us, we're consumers of brands. We have this expectation from brands that they treat us with respect, that the data that they accumulate is used in a very appropriate way. But we also have an expectation that they're using the data to provide us relevant solutions to help us engage with them as an advertiser in whatever products that we're pursuing to purchase from them. And I do believe that if we stay true to that, I think any brands that do will be very successful in this time.
I love how you make it about respect. You're right. It's back to the fundamentals of marketing, which is it's about the customer at the core. And we're in an era where it's about first party data and third party measurement instead of the reverse. So it'll be a very interesting period, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot together. Speaking of together, I'm lucky because I get to work with you and your teams. And one thing I've noticed is that you're incredibly, incredibly innovative and cutting edge. And really, your team is always skating to where the puck is going. How do you make that happen, Jeff?
I have to say, one of the most important things that's foundational is, and this is amongst all the teams, is to remain humble. It is so critical in this time where technology is moving so fast. Consumer buying behaviors are changing so rapidly. Any advertiser that thinks they've mastered it, or they become complacent in constantly pushing the envelope. So for me as a leader of amazing marketing professionals, the most important thing is to remain humble, knowing that what you have operating successfully today might not allow you to remain successful tomorrow or a week from now. So it's really, really important. The other thing is to constantly always be learning. Be learning from partners like Facebook, be learning from software providers that may have identified a way to help you as an organization propel your first-party data capturing forward, or to help improve through the use of artificial intelligence, the recruiting process or any aspect of your customer experience. And so for me, those really are super critical, is don't be complacent. Acknowledge the fact that technology is moving and continuing to accelerate the customer journey, and continue to remain humble through this process as we as leaders, but also as marketing professionals. It's super important for us to keep learning constantly.
Well, thank you so much for that, Jeff. And thank you for sharing all of these insights. Walden's measurement journey is really, really pioneering, and it's amazing to see how it's impacted your business. So thank you. We are so grateful for your partnership and look forward to seeing what's to come. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jenny.